Howdy, what the heck am I saying? I am sitting here on my couch and my dog Kyla is sitting right next to me. Let me show you her because I know you aren't going to be able to see her most of this. Look at that baby. Look how sweet she is. She's a cute girl. She's wearing a pink collar right now because she broke her last one. This is the one she actually came to us with. It's a little bit bright, a little bit obnoxious on her, but it's one of those that she won't be able to slip out of. So we need to get her a new one here soon. But anyway, there she is. Oh gosh, now I need to make sure I'm centered in all the things again. Okay, perfect. So last week I shared with you some of the things that I chatted about with patients at my hospitals as a registered dietitian nutritionist. I do not have very similar things to discuss today. I feel like I shifted the camera a little bit. I don't know. We're just gonna make this do. I forgot to turn the lights on, I just realized, but I hope it's not too dark. I'm getting out my laptop because this is where I have my notes of the things dietitian related that I discussed this week. But yeah, for some context, I'll link the last video below in the description. But why am I like out of breath? What the heck is happening to me? I am a consultant registered dietitian nutritionist, so the building that I work for, the company I work for has contracts with different like clinical settings and has their dietitians, me, go in and do the work as needed based on the contracts made with these hospitals and whatever. So I do kind of have a lot of variety in the things that I do throughout a week. I usually am just in inpatient psychiatric hospitals, like behavioral health types of environments. Like that's kind of where I spend the most time, but I do have some different things to talk about. And I think that's part of the reason, the fact that I work in behavioral health, that this week I just didn't have that many like nutrition education conversations and questions presented to me that weren't a lot of like gabbing about with you, because things are very different week to week. And with the population that I work with, the people inpatient for psychiatric reasons, sometimes they're not very open, receptive to nutrition, or that's not what they're in the hospital for. Like they're not in the hospital for their diabetes, they're in for mental health reasons. So it's not always super appropriate or natural to have nutrition conversations. Like I always offer them, but people may not be receptive, and I often will get like turned away or declined education, and you know, that's fine. It does not hurt my feelings. So this was one of those weeks where I did not have many productive conversations or very interesting conversations, but I did have other things that I can chat about with you about. What? I've kind of got my arm weird here because Kyla now has, oh gosh, I'm gonna mess up the camera again. She has her head tucked into my hip. She's goofy. So, okay, I'm not going to, oh gosh. Okay, Kyla needs to make me stop messing with this camera. Ugh, I can tell it's still a little crooked, but I'm so sorry. I'm not gonna be able to fix that right now. Let's open up my notes. What was I even talking about a minute ago? I don't remember. So the little note that I started off my like summary of things to share with you about kind of just highlights what I just talked about, how things are very different week to week. Like my conversations and everything very much vary. And this week, I have 2 weekly group sessions where I gather all the patients, and well, I try to, and we sit down and we chat about a variety of different nutrition related topics. I give a brief overview of what that looks like in my last video, but basically it's just kind of nutrition basics, just to make sure everyone knows kind of the foundations of my nutrition philosophy. And it's just like an easy thing to talk about and produces a lot of different questions usually. And I really always allow the direction of the group and the conversation to go wherever it is that naturally it's going, just because I want it to be the most helpful for the people there that it could be. So if they have a lot of questions about one topic, I don't want to like have to focus on like my generic like healthy eating spiel. Like I will give them the basics of that, but I want it to be, you know, what they're curious about, of course. But yeah, my sessions this week were dead, and everyone I tried to give one-on-one support to basically turned me away, which is, again, fine, but like, doesn't give me much to recap with you, but I do have other things. So I do have a lot of notes about a new-ish environment that I went to work at, but I think I want to circle back to that No, I'll share it first, just because this is how I started my week. So, like I said, I'm almost always in inpatient psych, but there's a building that is like a typical hospital that you would think of, that traditionally the contract we have with them is that whenever their dietitian that they've hired has to go on vacation or something, we will go in and cover for them. And sorry, this like cord is so not in a good spot. So yeah, that is totally fine. However, that dietitian just quit, and I think we're kind of still working out how things are going to look in the future as far as like if they're hiring a new person, if that contract with us is going to change and we're going to be there consistently. Like, I don't really know. I do split that responsibility with another dietitian, but she's on maternity leave. So I haven't been there since like October. I have not been in this building since October. It is now March. And for an unknown amount of time, because of the reasons that I just described, where we're like not really sure where things are going to go from here, I'm kind of indefinitely going to be going there twice a week, potentially, depending on when that other dietitian comes back from maternity leave, which hopefully is soon, because I do have a vacation in April that I need to enter. So I won't be able to do this building those days. So since I hadn't been there since like October, maybe November, I had to totally reorient myself for this building. So I really expected it to be pretty quick because of just the nature of this particular hospital and just like the workload that would be expected. I expected it to be pretty quick, but I had to like figure out where everything was again, like reintroduce myself to everybody again, change all of my logins for everything because everything had timed out and was like invalid. So I had some tech issues. I had to remember how to use their particular charting system, and their charting system is pretty clunky. So I had to totally reorient myself to everything about this building, which isn't the end of the world. Like, it's pretty easy to just pick things up due to the nature of my job, where like that's kind of a lot. We don't get a lot of like onboarding typically for most of our contracts. We just kind of show up, learn what we need to, and go and run with it. But yeah, I did have that like hiccup of like having to refigure everything out. So one of the things that I did run into, again, not very many productive education sessions while I was at the hospital, although I did go and I tried to meet every single patient just to get a baseline of like what's going on. Even the people that weren't really at high nutrition risk or anything, I just wanted to like get into the groove a little bit. One of the things I ran into is I was pretty unfamiliar with what go-to nutrition interventions that the facility's already kind of used to. Like, I know what their diet order options are, and I know what their supplement drinks, like if someone's not eating very well, I'll typically, meet with them, see what kind of things might work. And we often will order these nutrition supplement drinks that are kind of like mealtime replacements, like Boost, Ensure, Glucerna. If you're familiar with any of those, I might have pictures on the screen just in case, so you can kind of know what I'm talking about. So I kind of know what some of their formulations, that they choose for that thing is, but I don't know the other interventions that they might do. Like, for example, at other buildings, I'll order like a double protein at meals. So like I always give this example when I'm talking to a patient. Like, if the meal was like a cheeseburger or hamburger, they'll get 2 patties because it's double protein or something equivalent. It doesn't have to be strictly double of the protein-based entree. And then like at other buildings, we'll add on certain things to snack time, stuff like that. So I am used to kind of navigating different nutrition intervention options. So if somebody has specific diet needs or like is struggling to eat, we do have that option of the nutrition supplement drink. But like, what else does this building do? Because I was talking to someone who was having a lot of difficulty eating very much, and we did choose one of those drinks, but like there were other things that I was trying to explore with the patient, like fortified foods, sending specific things on the meal trays, and I just wasn't sure what the building likes to do and what they're used to doing. So I'm actually still waiting to hear back, but I did talk to the kitchen manager in the role of like managing the kitchen. What am I trying to say? And I kind of requested her to give me a list of different interventions that they're familiar with and what they've done before, what they're used to, what they might be open to. And once I get that from her, which I still haven't, I did ask for it on Monday, but like, it's not urgent. It's just something that would be helpful. And now we're in the weekend, by the way. I don't know if I've even said that in this video yet, but it is the weekend. So my work week is done. Then I just want to kind of like sit down with her and see what other options there might be, and like ideas that I have and see what she's receptive to. So that's something I'm working on, especially if this is going to be a building that we are showing up to and working with more consistently. Like, it would just be very helpful for me to have kind of go-to options that make everyone happy. I also mentioned the charting system super clunky. I feel like every charting system is super clunky, like everything has its own quirks, but I'm not used to this one because I haven't used it very much. So I am very crazy. First of all, I'm a crazy person. So how do I say this? How do I say this succinctly? I'm not like crazy tech savvy, but I do think my comfort with tech and like, not computer science per se or coding or anything, but I do feel like I have a lot more comfort in those areas, and I really utilize like computer programs to support my job, to make things run more efficiently, to really streamline and quicken processes of different things I do. So for almost everywhere I go, I have some sort of template for my nutrition assessment notes. And like, I could really talk in depth about this, but I do think we'll circle back because that's not something I really worked on until Friday. So that's end of the week. Yeah, I know that I ran into issues with their charting system though. Whenever I was onboarded briefly and met with the dietitian who's now no longer there back last year, the way that their charting system is you kind of fill it out. It's like a spreadsheet, and each little section you have to click on, and it has some options that you can click. What's a good example? So like if someone has edema, which is swelling, there's one little box section of like, does the patient have edema? And whenever you click on that option to bring up that section of the note, there's options like yes, and then you have to type the area, or no, and then like generalized, and then it gives you the option to type more. Like that, you can click things. Oh, I guess this is a better example. So like the diet, because you have to specify what diet the patient is ordered. Whenever you're in that section of it, you can click kind of their go-to prescribed diets, like regular, consistent carbohydrate, or whatever it is. I actually forget now because anyway, that's not what's important. But yeah, there's like, you can just, oh wait, that is literally not their diet. I don't know why I'm being stupid right now. They have, I mean, it is, but they call it something different. So like they follow, like the way it's titled is like, for example, there was someone this week that was on an 1800 kilocalorie ADA diet. So that means that they get 1800 calories throughout the day, and that breaks down into a certain like carbohydrate serving per meal. American Diabetes Association is ADA. So like you can just click on certain things, or you can click on the box and free type. So it's very like weird, but the dietitian that's usually in the facility previously, she skips all of them. Like there's like 20 or 30 or something like boxes to fill out, but she goes to the very bottom and it's just like comments/notes, and that's where she puts her entire nutrition assessment note. And I'm like, girl, that's awesome, like whatever, like that's fine. So I tried to do that the first visit I had there on my own, and I had a little template of like, these are the things I want to cover in my note. So like I would copy and paste it and then populate the patient's information into it, and then try to put that into the charting system. This sounds so complicated. I don't know why I'm like doing this in so much detail, but whenever I try to do that, there's a very strict character limit in the comments/notes section. So I was like, I can't properly put my assessment notes into here. And like, I think I'm overthinking it, because when I look back on older notes that other dietitians and people that have covered have done, like they're not extremely thorough notes, but I like to be pretty thorough. So I was very frustrated with trying to fit everything. Oh my gosh, I'm getting pop-ups on my computer. Trying to fit everything in that little comment section. So I'm very like motivated to create a new way to do that template that will work for me. And we'll come back and talk about my solution for that, because I did figure it out on my second visit there this week. Ugh, that was a lot. Okay, so another thing I did was, this doesn't come up in my role a lot because I work with like kind of shorter length of stay types of things, like the inpatient psych, hospitals. Usually people are only staying up to like a week at most of the places I go. However, there is at one of my buildings, they have a like longer term for kids to stay in like a residential program for their inpatient psych hospital. So oh my gosh, my dog's being so cute. She's just sleepy and letting me pet her. So every single 2 weeks, actually, I was gonna say month, but every 2 weeks, they check the patients on that long-term side, their height and their weight. and I monitor it monthly. So the first height and weight each month, I go and I review that information, and that's kind of due for me to complete by the end of each month. So like I have a lot of wiggle room on that. And I've actually been so curious to look into specific like policies, procedures, making sure that I'm doing it in the way that is specified for my role, because I've just been doing what was shown to me by the other dietitian previous to me in that facility. So I don't know. There's been a lot of things I've run into that she showed me that like, this is what we do, that later on I'm like, why the heck am I doing this? And then I end up either changing the procedure or dropping it entirely because I'm like, this is a waste of time and there's no one expecting this of me. So I'm kind of not totally sure what the building is expecting out of me monitoring the weights, but I did do that and completed that whole role this past week. I did check, oh my God, I did check everybody's height and their weight, and I made a little summary report where like I had a list of all the patients currently in that unit, what their admission height and weight was, what their weight, oh my goodness, their weight last month was, their weight most currently and their height most currently, BMI, like what percent weight change they've had since admission and since last month. Like I have a very like basic report that summarizes all of that information, and that's the easiest part of it to do. And then once I'm done with that, I go through and complete individual notes for each person, which that's where I'm like, is this actually expected? Because a lot of the people, the majority of them, they don't have any significant changes. So I'm like, why am I taking all of this time writing these notes for people that have no risk factors and nothing has changed and nothing's going on? Like, it's weird. So I did complete all of that. I have not yet filed and formalized the last part of that process for the individual notes, because that's a little bit tedious. You have to go into, oh gosh, I'm about to rant. They have paper charting instead of an electronic medical record, which I just complained how like every medical record I feel like is a little clunky. Physical charting is the bane of my existence. I hate it. So like I hate it. And that's a lot of the like, oh, I'm a crazy person thing that we'll circle back to, because I've tried to make it as electronic and not automated, but like techie that I can, just because I hate physically writing out the notes every single time. It's such a thing for me. I hate it so much. But yeah, for these monthly weight things, since they're kids, there are these growth charts. Again, if I am able to, I'll put an image of kind of what you can see this as on the screen. So every single month, I'll go in and I'll plot another point on these graphs for each patient, but I have to go into each of their physical charts. Like I have to go into the nursing unit, pull out the chart. I need to like enter my little note that I've typed up instead of written now, but like the new note, I have to find my section in the chart and place that in there, but also go to the growth chart, plot on the front and the back, because there's a front and a back. The front is just BMI and the back is the height and the weight for their age. So I have to plot both of those and write it all out. And if they trigger for an abnormal BMI, I have to create a new treatment plan. It's like a whole thing. It's just a whole thing. And I really don't like how tedious it is. But I did complete that, except for the actual filing of all that information. Like I completed the report, I sent it. Can you see her paw? I finished the report, I sent it to everybody. I have had a couple of conversations. Oh shoot, I actually forgot. Oh my gosh. So the heights and the weights for these kids, due probably to the fact that they're in an inpatient psych hospital, we don't want to trigger them with any like numerical data about their height and weight. Like I don't want them being very preoccupied. This has been this way since before I started. I didn't suggest this, but I think it's wonderful. We do blind weights, so the patient cannot see what the number on the scale is. Anytime that they get weighed, they don't see it, they don't know it. So the most frequent question that I get while I'm on that unit is, what was my weight, dietitian Casey? So I was supposed to communicate to the nurses that they could tell two patients what their weight was, because I didn't have it when I was talking to them. And they were two patients that really aren't at risk of, you know, any disordered eating behaviors or like being very, well, I don't know, like obsessed with the height and weight information. Like one of them actually has a goal to gain weight, and the other one was just curious. And he does have like concern about gaining too much weight, but he's so far off of what he's concerned about. Like, he's like, I don't want to get over 180 pounds, but he's like 150 something. And I'm like, you can be told what your weight is, because what the heck? But I totally forgot to communicate that to nursing, because I only wanted to do that because I didn't want the kids to have to wait too long, because I was last there on Wednesday and I'm not coming back till Monday, and I didn't get the information till Wednesday. Oh my God, so I feel bad. I'll meet with them on Monday and chat with them about that. But yeah, there wasn't any major issues with the weights this month. Like, there were quite a few unexpected weight losses. We have a lot of kids on the unit right now that aren't eating very well, that just don't have very good appetites, or do have disordered eating concerns or diagnoses. So I have a lot of these kids on those supplement drinks that I mentioned before, just to help support their nutrition status. And then like there's some of them that are trying actively to gain weight or stuff like that. Yeah, there were a lot of, like, not insane, but like 1 to 7 pound weight losses over the month, which isn't a crazy amount. But when you are a child, we don't really like seeing weight losses. Even if you are at a higher weight, it's not usually a good sign. There was one that is definitely a typo that had a 100 pound weight loss within 2 weeks. So that one I have requested some clarification on, because I'm like, I don't think so, unless you chopped off like 2 of her legs or something like that. Just, she didn't lose 100 pounds in 2 weeks. But that was the only thing that was like a red flag. At that same building, I'm having like a time with the menus. I've complained about this before, but I am really just not interested in food service stuff at all as a dietitian. Like, it's so interesting because dietitians can go into a few different like career paths. The main 3 I would say are community-based, where you work in like a women, infant, children clinic, WIC, or some sort of other like community program. The second one, well, the bigger one is clinical, where you work in like hospitals and stuff. And the third one is food service, where you work in like a kitchen setting. I don't know why, it seems so far removed from the others for me, and I have no interest in it. I've worked in kitchen settings before, and I do work closely with the kitchen departments in all of these buildings, but like, it's the least favorite part of my job, I would say. One food service thing that I did do, and I do this for quite a few of my buildings, I do regular sanitation inspections, where I'll walk throughout the kitchen and I have like a checklist that I'm going through to make sure everything is clean, organized, they're following the correct practices, they're logging temperatures and like pH and all this stuff that they're supposed to be logging. And for a few of my buildings, I'll do this every single month. There's some that do instead want me to do it quarterly, because they have other people in the building that do it the other month. So we just have to have it done every month, but I only do it every like 3. Oh my God, my dog is the cutest. I love my little baby. She's such a cutie. What was I talking about? Oh, so I did have one building that I did a sanitation inspection kitchen walkthrough, and it was one of my quarterly ones. So I'm less familiar with their kitchen, but I feel like I'm in a very lucky position where all of the buildings I work at have very put together kitchens, and they're very organized, the staff, and the staff really are motivated and well educated. And I didn't have a lot of concerns when I walked through it. There were a few things, like they keep a log of the food pantry temperature, like just where they store their dry goods, which is good that they're keeping that log, but it's supposed to be within 50 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit, like room temperature. Okay, sorry if you just saw fur, because she's, oh my God, off topic for a second. Petting my husky. It is shedding season. She is shedding her winter coat right now actively and moving to her summer coat, and the house is becoming a mess, and she looks a mess as well, because there's just globs of like fur that's ready to come out. Yes, I'm talking about you. So like here, I'll just grab this. What the heck is this? This was on her. And I just pulled that out very quickly, very easily. There's those all over her. She's a mess. So if you're seeing fur fly around, it's because I just finished petting her for a sec. I was just talking about the pantry temperature. So it's supposed to be within like that temperature range, and the form where they're logging it says that, and that's what the like policy says. That's what my little checklist that I'm following says. But they regularly, like, it's only halfway through the month. I usually wait till the end of the month before I do these walkthroughs, but this particular building prefers to have it done mid-month. That's just what their routine is, so I've just did it. So there were only like up to 15 days. Well, there weren't even, because today's the 15th that I'm filming this, but there were like a dozen days that were logged for the temperature of the pantry, and half of them were over 70 degrees. Like, girl, what are we doing? And there was no notation that they're supposed to be, because there's a spot for it, of like the corrective action measures taken when the temperature is out of range. Like, they're supposed to make a note of what they did when it was over 70 degrees, and like half of the time it's over 70 degrees and they're not saying that they're doing anything about it. So I'm like, you guys need to fix that. But that was like the only concern that I really had. I did give them some other recommendations for areas of improvement, but again, this is not my strong suit. And I almost feel like weird imposter syndrome doing the kitchen related things, just because I'm not super current and educated in that area. Like, I know what I'm doing, and I do have very straightforward criteria that I'm following to monitor. Sorry, there's the fur again. Monitor everything, but like, I just don't like doing it. I don't know. So I did that for one building this week. Another food service related thing, menus. Hate doing menus. Because I'm very basic with my nutrition and the meals that I put together, and I'm not very creative and whatever. So I don't like putting together menus, and I mostly in general do not have to. Like, that's not part of my role. But one of the buildings, I take a much larger part in that role than I would prefer to. Like, I think I'm the only one that technically has the login information to update their menu cycle. And I don't mind doing updates at all. And I'm constantly telling them, like, any feedback, recommendations, whatever you have, tell me and I'll change it, because I do not care. Obviously within reason. Like, I'm not gonna, although I would love to, like, have them have donuts every single morning, because then I would get to have a donut every day I visited, but we're not gonna do that. There are like, what I am decent with is making sure things are nutritionally adequate and that we follow certain things. Like, they're only supposed to have dessert type foods, which I would consider donuts to be, twice a week. But I'm so frustrated because actually last week I sat down with the kitchen manager there and we came up with a whole plan of things that we did want to refresh and update. And we did make some changes. I was kind of awaiting someone else that I thought was going to be able to support some of the issues I was running into, but turns out she has no idea what I was talking about, so she was not going to be able to help me, so I was going to have to figure that out this week. But then whenever I walked in on Monday, the kitchen manager was like, hey, so suddenly I'm not able to order like dozens of things that I typically order. So like, we were gonna have to totally change what we were doing with the menu, and that is insane. And it's extra frustrating because right now we're working off of our fall winter menu, and since it's March, we're going to be moving into spring summer pretty soon. So I would hate to put all of this work into changing this menu just to like drop it and then come back later this year and have to change it again. So I'm kind of like, what the heck am I going to do? So I kind of just made some changes and communicated that they're going to have to make more substitutions for a little while due to like not being able to purchase certain things, due to like issues with clarifying certain aspects of the menu. So like, that's fine, but like, bane of my existence. I feel like it's constantly a work of progress, and I'm gonna have to be looking at the spring summer one soon, and I'm not looking forward to that. So anyway, let's talk about something else because that's putting me in bad mood. Some other random tasks I did. So some of the specific buildings that I go into to work for have required like trainings for all of their staff, or like they want me to do certain trainings and stay current on certain things. A lot of it feels redundant to me, but like I do whatever is asked of me. It's not a big deal to me. Like, I think earlier this month, I unexpectedly had to sit down for a suicide prevention and awareness training that took over an hour, and none of it was new information to me. I don't know. So that kind of stuff sometimes is irritating, but a lot of them have these like electronic training portals for their staff, and they'll like assign different like courses or whatever for you to take. So I had a couple things that I had to complete. I didn't put this in the note because this happened later in the week, but one of the buildings that I recently did some of these trainings that I'm mentioning for, they had like a regulatory visit, like Joint Commission came in to visit, or like state or something, just to make sure that they're doing the things that they're supposed to do. They come and like look at their policies and how everything's going and what's being documented and stuff, just to make sure that they're doing the right stuff. They visited one, and my boss has a very chaotic communication style, which I totally understand, appreciate as a chaotic person myself. But it was Thursday afternoon where she texted me and someone else that works for this same like contract into some capacity that we had to submit certain like paperwork. And some of it was weird because it was like proving that we did online training for things that they had assigned us. And I'm like, why can't they just dig up those certificates in their internal system? Like, it was weird that they weren't able to do that, but whatever. I went and I found it and stuff. But they were asking for like a bunch of random stuff that I had no idea that they were even requiring. So that was fun. I was just like so stressed that evening because it was like, I thought I had figured everything out around like 5 p.m. And then while I'm eating dinner, my boss is texting me like, oh my gosh, we need these things too tonight. And I'm like, oh my God. So like, I was stressing on Thursday evening, but I think we got it all figured out. I am, as I'm saying this, remembering I told her I was gonna ask someone about titers, and I forgot to, because I had to get a bunch of blood work done for one of my buildings, and I don't remember getting the information back. So I don't know who they sent it to. I don't know, but I said I would follow up on that, and then I forgot to, but I'll send an email soon. Anyway, another random task I did. So one of my buildings, I am currently starting to train and onboard another dietitian that works in our company to be trained at that building as well. I met with her once last week and I didn't see her this week. I really don't know what our schedule for training is going to look like, but I went through and I refreshed and updated some training material to get her familiar with kind of the flow of what we do at the building. So that took a portion of time, just making sure that everything was current, that the links were right, that the screenshots and stuff that I put in the guide made sense. So I just refreshed that a little bit. Then the next bullet point on my note was about actually that joint commission visit that I was really stressing about for all like the paperwork they wanted on Thursday. But other than that, like, I wasn't able to go to the building the day that the visit actually happened. I thought it was going to be on a day that I was already visiting that building. So I was like, yay, this is perfect. But then I walked in and I asked, where they at? And they're like, oh, they're not coming till tomorrow. And I'm like, God dang it. So I did tell everybody like, hey, I'm gonna be working elsewhere tomorrow, but like, call me if you need anything. Like, here's my information. So I like was available for them as needed all day, but apparently it went really well. There were some minor questions, but that ended up being answered very quickly and efficiently, other than all of those like paperwork things. But that's a good sign that I didn't get called. Dude, there's fur on my tongue. I feel like I've been talking for like 3 years. Does it feel like I've been talking for 3 years? What was the thing that I wanted to circle back with? Because I only have one more bullet point listed here. Let me remember. It was, oh, the tech note template stuff. I'm just typing it so I don't forget. So the last bullet point I had before was the bane of my existence. Again, I think I used that phrase earlier about something else, but this is the other bane of my existence. Policies. Okay, so every single building, and I've kind of referenced this in general earlier throughout this whole chat that I'm giving you, but for each of the hospitals and buildings and everything, they have policies and procedures in writing, and technically I'm supposed to be involved in updating them, reviewing them as needed. And I've done some work on this in the past, but I haven't ever had to be like roped in very much on it. So again, it was one of those areas that at first I felt like pretty imposter syndrome about because I'd never done anything like it before. But I've done a couple of buildings now where I've supported in these changes and refreshments to the policies. And it isn't really that complicated. It's just making sure that the verbiage used within the written policies is accurate and current, that we're actually doing these things. Just making sure they're clear and accurate and concise and like real. I don't know. So one of my buildings, it's been really stressing me out. It's been really stressing me out because they have a trillion diet related, like nutrition, diet, kitchen related policies. They have a trillion of them, and they were all written in like 2004, and very minimally have any of them been updated to any capacity. So almost all of them are just not accurate. Some of them are ridiculous. Some of them say things that are simply not correct. Some of them, the verbiage is weird. Like, so I have been looking at these policies for about a year now and just being like, I want to fix these. And now is actually the time that it is auto renew to be looked into. And the kitchen manager that is at that building is the owner of all of these policies. And she told me that she just got an email that she needs to approve them, like reapprove them this month. So I was like, God dang it, I need to like kick into this and like get this done. So my vision was going through all of them, and I had a bunch of recommendations, and I actually scheduled a meeting like a month or two ago to chat with the director of nursing and this kitchen manager to talk about my concerns with the policies and like what needs to be changed. And then I basically got tasked with rewriting them myself, which is really fun and cool and fresh and awesome. And I got very stressed and did not have time on like to actively be working on that the way that I should be. But I went through things on a day that I was home this week and like laid everything out, and I found things where like these policies, we don't need like 6 different policies to say what our emergency menu and like protocols if there's an emergency. We don't need 6 different policies saying that. Like we can condense some of these into one thing. Like for example, one that was more intuitive for me is like anything menu related. We had like 4 different policies to talk about menus. I'm like, we have a menu. Like, why do we need 4 policies to talk about what is supposed to be in our menu? Like, it's just weird. And then like diet orders, we had one for like how diet orders are put into stuff, which is not the way it actually happens. We had one for allergies. We have one for other special dietary needs. We had one for something else that was just ridiculous because it was almost the same as something else. It was just crazy. So I'm like, let's just make one bigger policy about diet orders. Okay. So I went through and I like figured out which things could be clumped together, what things do need to be changed or updated or questions that I had. And I electronically made a bunch of notes because it was such a frustration. I had a printout of PDFs of all of these policies that I was kind of lugging around with me that I had written on, but then it just made it feel like such more daunting of a task. So I put those notes into an electronic format that I'm able to access anywhere. And my plan is, because I completed everything, all of the, except for like some of the ones that are just kitchen related. I was just gonna start those and then give kitchen manager the reins on it. Yeah, I made notes on all of them, and my vision, we're gonna start it on Monday because I've been emailing back and forth with her. We're gonna sit down and she will be able to, well, I wanna like talk about what I'm proposing and make sure she agrees. She probably will. We're always on the same page, I feel like. And then I don't know what the inside of this portal looks like for her to update the policies, but I wanna do that with her or support her with that and try to knock out as much as possible and inactivate the ones that aren't current, that we don't need. So I'm feeling very motivated because I got through all of that. I got to recycle all of those papers. So it was literal weight off my shoulders and I made so much progress, and the end is now in sight because I cannot let her approve these policies the way that they are. And she agrees. So perfect. So now I just want to talk about my note templates. I don't know what the most effective way will be, in like an ethical way as well, just because all of mine are based on current buildings I work at. So I think I'll try to just blur stuff out and maybe put some screenshots, but let me pull up this. So I use Google Drive for everything just because I'm able to access it no matter what building I'm in, no matter what computer I'm using. Like, it's just the best way for me to do it. Also, you can like share it with other people. So when I'm splitting a building with someone, we can both access all the information as needed, blah, blah, blah. So this is kind of where my templates started. So this is just like a free typed note for one of my hospitals. Basically, I'll take this entire note, copy it, scroll down, and paste it for a new patient. And I'll go through and type things as needed. So like wherever the height and weight and stuff is, like I'll just type in there. Then there's some areas that, this is something I added because this template was mostly from a dietitian before me, but I'll also use these drop-down menus just to make things a little bit easier for myself. And yeah, so this is just kind of the first iteration of some of my note templates, because again, this was first designed by somebody else, and you'll see that the years on this are from 2024. I don't actively go to this building anymore, and also they've changed their charting system, so whenever I'm regularly going back there again, this is gonna be pretty different anyways. But yeah, I find this very easy because it has a lot of the information that I don't want to type over and over and over and over again because that just takes so much time. So this is just a good starting point. So like in this assessment portion where there's assess patient due to admission, blah, 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 blah. So they have positive triggers of, I just put a list of like the most common nutrition risk screening triggers that pop up for this building. And whenever I went to make a note for this, I would just delete everything except for whatever was actually triggered on the nutrition risk screening. And then this was helpful too, because whenever I do a follow-up note, I can use this same template and just make some minor changes where I just change some of the verbiage. I delete things like the estimated nutrition needs because you only need to do that on full assessments typically. But yeah, it just made it very streamlined, easy. This was the first template I became familiar with. And then let's see here, I gotta fill this one out a little bit because this one hasn't been used in a long time because I'm probably the primary person that actually uses these. Okay, cool. So let me make a little snapshot of what I just put together. And this is just an example of one of the ways that I keep tabs on, like the schedule of who I need to see. So here I just filled this up literally just now, so none of this is real. But I like to keep tabs on what my current census for all of these buildings are because most of the charting systems don't have a great method. Oh God, I have been talking for a million years. A lot of these buildings don't have a good method to keep tabs on this workload list, this workload to know when assessments are due and stuff like that. So here I have a list of 4 random names. I have type. This varies from building to building. So here I've treated it as the hospital originally was. So MS means medical, surgical, acute. And then I typed if it's an admission assessment that I've done or a follow-up that I've done most recently or what I'm doing that day. Again, this kind of isn't the way that all of them go, but then I have a note section. I do have that for every single iteration of this that I have just so I can remember like what's going on with these patients. So I put like some examples of what that might look like here. And then this one is unique because this building, we only followed up with patients weekly. On other versions of charts like this, I have oh my God, my dog just growled in her sleep. I have a column, yes, in between reviewed and next reviewed date that kind of specifies the risk level or how many days that I want to place between now and when I want to follow up. So here it automatically just adds 7 days, but other charts like this, I'll have a number there. So like 3 for a high risk patient that I want to see within 72 hours again, I would put a 3 there and it would only add 3 days. You get the point. And then that last column, the next review date, that's just when my follow-up is due. And you see here that there is one that is highlighted in red. I have put this in every iteration of the chart just to get my brain to notice it more easily. I forget if it's 3 days. Yeah, it must be 3 days. So within 3 days of today's current date, like if it qualifies for that criteria, it highlights because that just tells me like I should assess them today because I'm probably not going to be back for the next 3 days or whatever. Like it just means that they're more urgently due to be seen. I hope that makes sense. So let's show you something a little bit more, just a little bit more. You know what? I think I'll show you the building summary that I was working on because I already had some fake notes and stuff like that on here. So here you see that instead of just like a big document that I type notes in, this is an Excel spreadsheet. Well, it's a Google spreadsheet that has different criteria that goes into the notes. Does that make sense? I think that makes sense. So this is for my notes where I don't just get a blank document that I can copy and paste a full note assessment in. This is for my notes that are in most of my buildings that have kind of that fill in the box type of system. So I have to go in and type each thing. So what I find to be a lot easier rather than going through the whole assessment, like screening process, learning everything I need to, like keeping little notes on the side of what I want to make sure I include in my note, blah, blah, blah. And then opening a blank note and having to just like remember all that or reference things that I've handwritten. I find that very tedious. So I found that having this open and typing in the information as I go, and then whenever I open up my assessment note, just copy and pasting each section, it just makes it so much quicker for me. And I do have a lot of things that I'll auto type that are like common phrases. This one doesn't have as many as an example, but like one of them that's filled out is like reason for consult. It automatically says nursing referral because mostly whenever I'm creating a new note it's because I've been recently referred to see this patient, but whenever I'm typing up the note for any other reason, I'll still like use this template, but I'll go into there and I'll type something else if I'm supposed to, like patient requested to see me while I was on the unit, or length of stay assessment, which just means they weren't triggered for any nutrition risk. They just had been there for a week, or I'll type like follow up there. But yeah, typically it's nursing referral, so that's what it says by default. And then this is actually from a different template that I have, but I mean, this actually has a lot more of those auto-populated texts, for example. But yeah, I'll go through and I'll create that tab, like double tap it to make it the patient's name instead. You get it. I think that's all for that. But yeah, so I wanted to make a system like these things that I've given you the example of for the building that I started again this week. Because like I told you, at first, when my first visit there, I kind of did the thing that I did with that first template example where I had like a full note that I was going to put into that comment/notes section. So I had something like that for the patient. And then whenever I tried to copy and paste it, I think it also wouldn't let me do a copy paste thing, which I don't remember why that was or how I fixed it, because it's letting me copy paste now. I don't know. But like I said, there was like a very strict character limit and I couldn't get like even a third of the information on there. So I personally decided that I was gonna go through their template, like each little box that they have in their nutrition assessment form, even though it seemed like it was potentially gonna be more tedious because they have a lot of boxes. But let's see. Yeah, but I did do it and I'm actually pretty excited about it. I did this as I was going. So I went through and I copy and pasted one of my other templates to start with. And then I reorganized it based on the order of their note template on that actual electronic medical record system. And kind of just as I went, I tried to tweak it to make more sense for the building. And it does still definitely need some work, I would say. But I'm pretty happy with it as is for now. And this did make my day go a lot quicker on Friday compared to Monday. And I'll try to show you this, but this is definitely not final product. I do want to tweak some of the formulas here and make it a little bit more thorough / actually cover things that I would like to have covered. Yeah, I think that's all. Well, there is one more thing I can show you, but this I'm pretty excited about and it is a current work in progress. I'm going to continue trying to improve it over time. The most crazy thing I do is what I want to show you. I don't know how this is going to go. Do I have like a guide on here for the dietitian I split this with? I think I do. Oh good, I think I do. Okay, so I'm gonna just show you the screenshots of this because I don't know a better way to do it. So, where should I start? So this building uses paper charting, the one that I'm about to kind of walk through what I've done instead with you. Oh my God, let me make sure I'm still actively going. We've been talking for an hour, that's crazy. So I do it all, okay, so they have a written note template and I didn't want to mess anything up by changing their form for their note and the way that it's structured and laid out, but there wasn't a very intuitive, easy way to make it more electronic and like type in the boxes kind of thing. So I did the most. I did something much more complicated. I created a new version of the same template of the note in a Word, like a Google Doc thing. And then I wanted it to be where I could take an Excel, like a Google sheet. I keep saying Excel and Word doc, but like, you know what I mean. This is all in Google. I wanted to fill out a spreadsheet for each of the sections of the note that I would usually write something in, and then have, once I've completed all of those sections of each note for each patient, just click a button and populate all of the notes in the Google documents using the template. So then I just have templates that are typed up notes instead of like having to meticulously write in each note. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I made it very complicated. There may have been an easier way to do it, but this is working for me and I've gotten compliments on how they say smart, I say crazy that I am. So what I had to do is install a third-party application to integrate the Google Sheet and the Google Doc. So this guide kind of walks the other user. So I don't think that the dietitian I split this with is using the system yet. I don't blame her because it's insane to download that application. And then there is a document to build the notes. So I use an electronic census summary that's sent to us over email every single morning. And for anyone that I'm going to be assessing, I highlight some of the data on that and just paste it onto my template for like the Google Excel spreadsheet thing. And then using that, it populates some of the things automatically that I want. So I want it to just have their first name. I want to populate the actual medical record number that shows up on the sticker for identification. Because like on the census spreadsheet, it has the medical record number, but like split into 2 different boxes for some reason. I don't know how to explain that. Anyway, that part is highlighted in yellow, the thing that I'm copying and pasting from the census report. And then the things that are highlighted in blue are automatically populated based on other things that I'm typing. So whenever I'm screening someone, I obviously know their height, weight, and identified sex at birth. So I input those things, and then I have formulas to identify what their BMI and their status is. And then there's a lot of other things throughout my note thing where things that I type will automatically populate something else later on in the spreadsheet, just because that like is formatted in a way that's more appropriate for the actual note whenever I hit that button to create the note. Does that make sense? I have no idea if that makes sense. Then I'll put consult trigger, like why I'm seeing them. This hits 2 different sections of the note. So it puts in the like beginning of the note of just like why I'm doing this, but then in my like summary, like actual written out note, just talking about like why I'm seeing them, what we discussed, blah, blah, blah. This gets pulled into a formula to like reiterate like why I talked to them or was assessing them, the date that it was ordered, the nutrition risk screening, like the things that nursing is telling me that this patient is at risk for, what their diet order is. Automatically I have it as regular, but I do have that drop down, as you'll see, that I can select other things. Like one of the examples on here is vegetarian, but I have other stuff too. And then this is just one of those goofy things. Then I have like another section that's like, oh, I guess I didn't explain that either. So there was one about BMI where I wanted to check if I wanted to build a treatment plan, which I build a treatment plan if somebody has certain criteria met in their BMI. Basically, if they're underweight or at a certain threshold of obesity, then I want to make a treatment plan. If I check that box, it goes to not only my note template for like the actual note assessment that I originally built this for, I made another template of the treatment plan. So whenever that box is checked, it'll also build a treatment plan for that. So I'm doing 2 things in the same line. I have no idea if that makes sense either. And then in the second one where I check a box, it's about the food allergies. And basically there's just kind of an ongoing issue where the staff don't always communicate the food allergies of the patient the way that they are supposed to basically prevent any risk. So I have on bed board ? So that just means that admission staff put it on the bedboard that kitchen can always see. So if I check that, that populates something in my note later on to say that like things were done right, and I just clarified it with staff to make sure everyone was on the same page. If it's not checked, it'll like point out like, hey, something was wrong, I did correct it and fix it, and then I communicate it with staff. So that's what those are. Then just sections of the note that were on that original template. I have something for conditions, which is just like past medical history. I do have one section where I want to just type up all of them. And then all the things that are highlighted in blue, I usually have those hidden. They are all formula based and pull from what I've typed in the conditions column. So you'll see in that top one, it has under gastrointestinal, it has GERD. You'll see that I did type GERD in that first column, conditions. What's a more interesting example? I don't know, these are all pretty straightforward. Yeah, these are all pretty straightforward. And then kind of the same deal. Oh, yeah, that just explains more. Same deal for eating related issues, just another section that's on that template. So again, type whatever I want to, and it should populate in the correct section. And the way I have this broken down, it's just so whenever it populates something even later on, for like this, for example, it'll have the section of like eating issues, and then if they have anything, it'll say like gastrointestinal symptoms, ellipses, detox, you know, something else if it qualifies, like nausea or something. And then the next line down, chewing/swallowing difficulties if there are any. So it just like lists them all out within their section, if that makes sense. So yeah, it's kind of two-tiered. So I like type everything out. It populates the actual diagnosis that I want it to populate in the correct section, and then later on, it compiles all of those and lists them all together. And the listing them all together is what I want to show up on the actual note at the end. Yikes. Then I have these other ones that are pretty straightforward. Some of them do pull for formulas later on. So for like labs, if the thing that I typed does not say the word none, then there will be something that populates later that indicates that there were abnormal nutrition related labs. If it has the word none, that's not going to show up, so we're good. Same thing with the significant weight change. Basically, if I keep my normal template, no significant unintentional weight changes reported, then nothing's going to happen. But if I do put anything else, basically, it will trigger a nutrition diagnosis related to their weight change. Oh my gosh, this is so convoluted. Then diet, supplements, interventions, these are all drop down because usually it's just like continue as ordered, no new recommendations kind of thing. But I do have options if I were going to recommend something different. And some of them have like additional things. So like for diet change, it does say continue as ordered, and I don't have anything else, but there is an option to change it. And then diet recommendation. For one of these, I have vegetarian, even though they're already ordered vegetarian, just to provide more clarification of what this is supposed to be used for. But if someone was ordered regular when they were admitted, but they have diabetes and should be on a consistent carb diet, I would put drop down, change, and then consistent carbohydrate. And then there's an additional note section where I type, whatever I want. And this goes after some of the things that will automatically populate on that note that I've already kind of told you about, like the food allergies or why it is I'm seeing them, blah, blah, blah. And then I always have it automatically summarize the outro as just basically no new recommendations, continue plan of care, follow up as needed, blah, blah, blah. If I need to change that, I will go in and change that. And then I have the date assessed time and the time that I finished the note. And I do have a drop down for which dietitian it is. It's usually just me. And then there are some more drop downs for like the actual consult interview, like if I was able to meet with them, what barriers they had, like if they were asleep or significant symptoms prevented them from being interviewed. There are some things that aren't touched on in this template on the final note, but this does get some of the tedium out of the way. So then the rest of these screenshots just kind of show what I already described, like the stuff before has formulas that populate certain phrases I want to show up somewhere on the note. Do I show? Oh, I don't show the final thing, I don't think. But yeah, then I open that third-party system. I basically have it run the report, and then it creates files for each of the people. So you'll see each of them got a full assessment note and one of them got a treatment plan because of their BMI. And I didn't show what this final thing looks like. I don't know if I'm really allowed to, so I guess it's fine that I'm not showing you. But I do manually open each of these, and if something shows up weird the way it's formatted, I'll fix that. If something didn't populate the way I expected, I'll fix that. Some of the things that aren't populated on the note, I might need to change which boxes are check marked. Like there's a final thing at the very end of the note that is like the follow-up plan, and it's automatically checked as like as needed, PRN, whatever. But if in the note I'm saying I'm gonna follow up with them within 3 days, I need to change that check mark, otherwise I look like a goofy person. Let's see, I think the rest of this is just how to set up the autocrat thing. So you don't need to know how to do that, that's just for us. Okay, perfect. Oh my gosh, okay, that's it. Oh my gosh. I could talk about insane behavior of mine all day, but I'm gonna stop. So that's everything I did as a consultant registered dietitian nutritionist this week. I feel like I've said so many words now that I don't know if I'm saying real words, but yeah, okay. So toodles. I had fun going through something different with you this week. I don't know if this is gonna be a weekly thing for me. I just don't know how sustainable and realistic that is, because even though I'm doing a lot of different stuff every week, some of it is kind of redundant and sometimes it's not very eventful. So like this time, I probably wouldn't have made this video if I didn't, in the future, if I had a week like this, I probably wouldn't make a video like this, because this is all kind of just like foundational stuff of like some of my other roles. Whereas currently you don't have that context. So it's still kind of interesting to talk about. I don't know. Let me know what you're thinking. I love my job. I love being a dietitian. I love the variety in my role. I love, being able to do different things every day, every week. Because I'm very easily bored. Yeah, my voice is going away. So I'm going to stop filming. Probably about out of space on my camera. So toodles. Chat with you next time.